Now, on the line, we have with us Professor Francis Boyle. Dr. Boyle is a leading American expert in international law. He's responsible for drafting the Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989, the American implementing legislation for the 1972 Biological Weapons Convention, and he's the author of a lot of books. But the one that we're interested in today is Biowarfare and Terrorism. We have him on the line, and welcome, Dr. Boyle.
Well, thank you, David, and my best to your viewing audience.
Thank you. Thank you for waiting. We had that breaking news that's very important that's going on there. But I wanted to ask you about the bioweapons labs that are in these African countries, because you know very well what's going on with the Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act that you drafted there. Why are they putting these labs in those countries?
Well, it's very simple in try to circumvent the Biological Weapons Convention and my Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989 that provides for life in prison. We have a BSL-4 in Guinea. We have one at the capital there, one in Liberia, Monrovia, and another one at Kenema in Sierra Leone. And they all do this dual-use offensive, defensive, biological warfare work. Guinea is never been a party to the Biological Weapons Convention. Liberia has never been a party. Sierra Leone is a party, but, you know, given the disturbances over there, I'm sure no one's been paying attention to what's been going on in these labs. However, I will point out, I drafted the my Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act to make it extraterritorial by name, in haec verba, so that these illegal criminal types of biowarfare work done in these labs by U.S. citizens can be prosecuted.
That's interesting. Now, as you pointed out, the CDC is there. Tulane University. Anybody knows about the notorious Tuskegee test that ran for decades on black people with syphilis, not telling them that, not giving them treatment and just watching this develop for decades. Tulane University is there, as well as the CDC. So what is your take on this? Do you think this is something that was perhaps accidentally leaked out? Is this deliberate? Because it's interesting that this is a different strain, and it is thousands of miles away from where these are typically happening in Central Africa. This is now over in Western Africa. They want to say that it transmitted by passing through animals. I mean, why didn't we have any outbreaks in between those two different areas?
That's right. The standard explanation is completely nonsensical. I have here in front of me the Biological Defense Research Program of 1988, page Appendix 3-4, clearly says that the Center for Disease Control has been doing biological warfare work in Sierra Leone since 1988. And also Columbia University was doing biological warfare work in Liberia. And as I said, Liberia has never been a party to the BWC. Of course, this bat theory makes no sense at all.
Right.
It's clear that, in my opinion, the agent we're dealing with here of Ebola is 70% fatality, whereas all previous Ebola outbreaks had been 50%. And also, it appears that it has perhaps somehow been genetically modified to make it airborne to some extent. I recently sent to your assistant there a press release. The National Institutes of Health mated live Ebola with the virus for the common cold. And it very well might have been this type of vaccine that they were testing out over there at these BSL-4 facilities. We know that the Sierra Leone government shut down Kenema and accusing them of starting the pandemic with shots under the supervision of Tulane. And we know for a fact Tulane has been involved in biowarfare work for quite some time. We also know that Fort Detrick is over there. The Center for Disease Control is over there. These three labs were set up by USAID, which is a front organization for the CIA. So I think it's pretty clear these three labs, I suspect, were the origins of this pandemic, which has now come here to the United States. The CDC just said 21-day quarantine, but the WHO recommends 42-day quarantine. Mm-hmm. And even the 42-day quarantine only gets 98% of the people. So my guess is, we should really be talking about 50 days or more quarantine. And the question then is, why did they allow the 4,000 people on that cruise ship off? And according to yesterday's New York Times, there's no monitoring on any of them. Every other contact going back to Mr. Duncan is somehow being traced, contacted, quarantined, whatever. But the 4,000 people on that ship, no. And they could have easily just quarantined everyone on the ship right there. So I don't know exactly what to say about this, but it doesn't look good.
Well, we saw that in Nigeria. They've gone now the 42 days, and they haven't had another outbreak there. But they went through contact tracing. They had 900 people that they were looking at based on one person who flew into their country on an airplane, was very sick. 20 people caught it. 8 people died. And they had 900 people that they were looking at. We haven't seen anything like that. As you pointed out, we've got a situation where you've got this new strain of Ebola that they've never seen before that travels from an area where they've typically had it in Central Africa, 1,000 to 2,000 miles, and they want to tell us that it's been traveled, that they got there by bats. I mean, that's just not, that's not very credible, is it?
Well, even the New York Times reported that in 1976, that when Ebola was first discovered, the World Health Organization ordered it to be sent to Porton Down in the UK. That's their equivalent of Fort Detrick. So you can figure out what happened with it from there. And Sierra Leone is a former colony of Britain. Liberia has always functioned as a de facto colony of America. And now we see U.S. troops in Liberia, British troops in Sierra Leone, and France, the former colonial power in Guinea, sending troops in there.
You're talking about them finding it, isolating it, and then immediately sending it back to their equivalent of Fort Detrick in the UK. It's very much like the movie Aliens. That one guy finds that alien and he says, don't kill it. I got to get it back to the military-industrial complex. That's what they do. There was an article that came out today I think is very interesting. As we look at this is a new strain. They were talking about it being a new strain when it was first identified, first broke out in April. And if you look at all the previous outbreaks, it's about 2,500 people. It's 2,478. I totaled it up. Already in this one, we've had about 9,700 people. So it's about 4 times all the previous outbreaks combined. This is a new strain. It looks like it's a weaponized strain. You're talking about them bringing something back and working on it. We just have a report that came out last Friday, basically kind of buried in the Friday news cycle. This is from the New York Times. And we haven't seen very much reporting about this. The White House said they were going to cut funding for risky biological studies. Now, this is them saying that they're not going to do any more weaponizing. What do you make of that?
Well, that's the smoking gun. That's Friday in the New York Times. You see, they de facto admitted that this is exactly what they were doing at those BSL-4 labs, in the 3 BSL-4 labs in West Africa. And they're basically sort of retroactively trying to cover their rear ends there.
Yes.
But I think that statement that came out Friday is a pretty good indication that they know that those 3 labs and other researchers here in America, like Tulane, CDC, National Institutes of Health, Galveston down there, University of Texas, have been up to their eyeballs in this. I would only know what to say. Weaponization of Ebola. It does not appear it is as contagious as the flu, but it looks like it could be as contagious as the common cold, which is what the National Institutes of Health has been working on now for quite some time. So it could be that they ship that agent over there, put it into some type of vaccine, and then tested it out on these people.
Yeah, and we should always remember that the influenza epidemic right at the end of World War I that killed 21 million people, that was from soldiers returning, bringing back that epidemic to their country. Now, we've put 5,000 soldiers into the heart of the heaviest outbreak of Ebola, not with much training, not with basically any effective equipment to protect them. We're putting them at risk. That, to me, is a huge deal. But going back to this New York Times thing.
We know for a fact that this Dr. Mengele professor at the University of Wisconsin resurrected the Spanish flu virus, brought it back to life on behalf of the Pentagon. We know that for a fact. We also know that the same Dr. Mengele at the University of Wisconsin genetically engineered Ebola to make it more dangerous. And we also know this same Dr. Mengele at the University of Wisconsin does GMO flu work, which with H5N1 and some of the